The family dinner was supposed to celebrate our success, but I discovered it was actually my execution. 33 relatives gathered around tables laden with my favorite dishes, laughing at stories about everyone except me. My own mother had orchestrated this elaborate gathering, sending personalized invitations to cousins I barely knew, while treating me like hired help. The revelation came when I overheard Aunt Margaret whisper to my mother about the real purpose of tonight. My stomach dropped as the pieces clicked together. This was not about family unity. But before we dive into this twisted tale of family betrayal, I want to know, where are you watching from tonight? If this story sounds familiar, or you have ever felt like an outsider in your own family, hit that like button and subscribe for more shocking family drama stories. Trust me, what happens next will leave you questioning everything about blood loyalty and family bonds. The evening started innocently enough. I had just returned from my business trip to find my childhood home transformed into something resembling a wedding venue. White tablecloths, floral centerpieces, and enough food to feed a small army filled our modest dining room and spilled into the backyard. My mother, Evelyn, greeted me with an unusual brightness in her eyes, almost manic in her enthusiasm. "Serafina, darling, you are just in time for our family celebration," she announced, adjusting a centerpiece for the 5th time. The way she said my name felt different somehow, like she was speaking to a stranger rather than her daughter. I had not been informed about any celebration. The last conversation we had was 3 weeks ago when I mentioned my promotion to regional manager at the marketing firm. She had responded with her typical lukewarm congratulations before changing the subject to my brother Marcus and his latest achievement. This elaborate gathering seemed excessive for a simple promotion acknowledgement. The relatives began arriving in waves. Cousins from 3 states away, elderly aunts I had not seen in years, family friends who barely knew my name. Each arrival brought squeals of excitement from my mother, warm embraces and animated conversations about their lives, careers, and recent accomplishments. I watched from the kitchen window as she welcomed each guest with genuine joy, a stark contrast to the mechanical hug she had given me upon my arrival. "Serafina, could you help serve the appetizers?" she called, not waiting for my response before turning back to her conversation with Uncle Robert about his son's recent marriage proposal. I found myself relegated to the role of caterer at what was supposedly my celebration. As I moved through the crowd with trays of hors d'oeuvres, I noticed something disturbing. The conversation stopped when I approached, resuming only after I moved away. Aunt Patricia quickly changed topics when I offered her a stuffed mushroom. Cousin David suddenly found his phone fascinating when I tried to join their discussion about real estate markets. The seating arrangement revealed the first concrete evidence of deliberate exclusion. A beautifully printed seating chart directed 33 family members to their designated spots across 4 tables. My name appeared on a small card placed at a folding chair near the kitchen door, separated from the main gathering. Even the hired photographer had been instructed to position himself to capture the main tables, effectively cutting me out of the family portraits. During dinner, my mother stood to make a toast that would forever change my understanding of my place in this family. She spoke eloquently about the importance of supporting family members who truly deserved recognition, about how proud she was of relatives who had overcome challenges through their own merit. Her eyes deliberately avoided mine as she detailed the accomplishments of cousins who had graduated college, gotten married, or started successful businesses. Tonight, we celebrate those family members who have made us proud through their dedication and hard work, she continued, raising her glass toward everyone except me. those who have proven their worth and earned their place at this table. The words hit like physical blows. I had graduated summa cum laude from Northwestern, built a successful marketing career from the ground up, and had just earned a promotion that doubled my salary. Yet somehow none of these accomplishments warranted recognition or celebration in my mother's eyes. After dinner, I retreated to my childhood bedroom, seeking solace in familiar surroundings. However, even this sanctuary had been violated. My dresser drawers had been rifled through personal documents scattered across my desk. Bank statements, tax returns, and employment contracts lay exposed, clearly examined by someone looking for specific information. My laptop, which I had left charging on my nightstand, showed recent activity. The browser history revealed searches for my company's employee directory, my salary information, and even my recent performance reviews. Someone had accessed my email account, reading through correspondence with colleagues and supervisors about my promotion and upcoming projects. The violation felt complete and calculated. This was not casual snooping, but systematic intelligence gathering. Someone had been building a case against me, collecting ammunition for tonight's humiliation. The family dinner was not a celebration, but a tribunal, and I had been found guilty of some unnamed offense. I discovered the smoking gun in my mother's study later that evening. Financial documents spread across her desk revealed the true motivation behind tonight's gathering. My recent promotion had come with stock options and a substantial bonus that would vest over the next 2 years. More importantly, my grandmother's will, which I had never been allowed to read, left me a significant inheritance that would transfer on my 30th birthday in 6 months. My mother had been systematically undermining my relationship with extended family members, spreading lies about my character and capabilities, while positioning herself as my financial guardian. Tonight's dinner was the culmination of a long campaign to isolate me from potential allies who might support my claims to the inheritance. The realization that my own mother had orchestrated this elaborate deception for financial gain was devastating. Every dismissive comment, every excluded invitation, every comparison to more successful relatives had been calculated moves in a chess game where I was the unwitting opponent. The woman who had raised me, who I had trusted implicitly, had been systematically destroying my reputation and relationships for her own benefit. The next morning brought clarity and determination. I woke before dawn with a plan forming in my mind, fueled by righteous anger and the need for justice. The evidence was overwhelming, but I needed to present it in a way that would expose my mother's manipulation to the very family members she had turned against me. I started by documenting everything. Using my phone, I photographed the financial documents still scattered across her desk, the browser history on my laptop, and the seating chart that had so deliberately excluded me. Each piece of evidence told part of the story, but together they painted a clear picture of calculated deception. My first call was to my grandmother's attorney, Harrison Bradley, who had handled her estate planning. Mr. Bradley had been trying to reach me for months, but my mother had been intercepting his calls and letters. When I finally connected with him directly, his relief was palpable. "Serafina, I have been deeply concerned about your situation," he said, his voice carrying the weight of professional obligation and personal worry. "Your grandmother left very specific instructions about her estate, and I fear they have not been properly communicated to you." The truth was more shocking than I had imagined. My grandmother had left me not just a monetary inheritance, but the family home where last night's dinner had taken place. She had also established a trust fund that would provide financial security for the rest of my life, with very specific conditions about family involvement and oversight. Most importantly, she had included a letter addressed directly to me, warning about potential family interference and providing detailed instructions for protecting my interests. The letter had been in Mr. Bradley's possession for 2 years, waiting for my 28th birthday as specified in the will. My mother had been legally required to inform me of this inheritance, but had deliberately withheld the information. Your grandmother was very concerned about certain family dynamics, Mr. Bradley explained carefully. She included provisions specifically designed to prevent manipulation or coercion regarding your inheritance. She wanted you to have full autonomy and the support of independent counsel. Armed with this information and legal backing, I began reaching out to family members who had attended last night's dinner. My approach was strategic and methodical, starting with relatives who had seemed uncomfortable with my exclusion. Cousin Sarah from Denver was my first breakthrough. When I called her that afternoon, she immediately expressed guilt about the previous evening. Serafina, I felt terrible about how you were treated last night, she admitted. Your mother told us you had been struggling financially and personally, that you might be embarrassed about your situation. She said the dinner was meant to show family support during a difficult time, but it felt wrong from the beginning. This revelation opened the floodgates. Sarah had been told I was facing job loss, financial difficulties, and potential legal troubles. According to my mother's narrative, I had been making poor decisions and needed family intervention rather than celebration. The promotion I had earned was supposedly a temporary position that would likely end in termination. She showed us emails that appeared to be from your supervisor expressing concerns about your performance. Sarah continued. There were also bank statements suggesting financial irresponsibility. We thought we were helping by not drawing attention to your achievements, giving you space to work through your problems. The emails and bank statements were expertly forged, combining real information from my privacy violation with fabricated details that painted me as incompetent and unstable. My mother had created an entire false narrative about my life, complete with supporting documentation that she had presented to family members over several months. I asked Sarah to contact other relatives and arrange a follow-up gathering for that weekend. This time I would control the narrative and present the truth about both my situation and my mother's deception. The family meeting took place at my apartment on Sunday afternoon. 15 relatives attended, including some who had been most dismissive at the dinner. I had prepared a presentation that systematically dismantled my mother's lies while revealing the truth about her motivations. I started with recent documentation of my professional success. The promotion letter, performance reviews, and testimony from colleagues who joined by video call to verify my standing at the company. My supervisor, Jennifer Williams, spoke directly to the family about my contributions and future prospects. Serafina is one of our most valuable team members, Jennifer explained. Her recent promotion was well earned and comes with significant growth opportunities. I am not sure where any negative information about her performance would have originated, but I can assure you it is completely unfounded. Next, I presented the financial evidence. Real bank statements showed stable finances and steady savings growth. My credit report, which I had obtained that morning, demonstrated excellent financial management, with no debt beyond a manageable mortgage and car payment. The forged documents my mother had shown them were clearly fabricated when compared to the authentic versions. The email headers contained inconsistencies. The bank logos were slightly off, and the account numbers did not match my actual financial institutions. The legal documentation from Mr. Bradley provided the final piece of the puzzle. When he explained my grandmother's inheritance and the specific provisions designed to prevent family interference, the room fell silent. The timing of my mother's campaign coincided exactly with the approaching transfer of assets. Your grandmother was very specific about these protections, Mr. Bradley told the assembled family. She had witnessed family conflicts over inheritance in previous generations and wanted to prevent history from repeating itself. She never intended for family members to be deceived or manipulated regarding Serafina's circumstances. The reaction was immediate and dramatic. Aunt Patricia began crying, apologizing for her cold treatment the previous evening. Uncle Robert expressed outrage at being manipulated into participating in my humiliation. Cousin David asked pointed questions about what other lies my mother might have told about family members. The most powerful moment came when my grandmother's letter was read aloud. Her words, written 2 years before her death, seemed prophetic in their accuracy. My dearest Serafina, if you are hearing this letter, it means you have reached the age where your inheritance becomes active. I fear that certain family members may attempt to interfere with your autonomy and financial security. Trust your instincts, seek independent counsel, and remember that true family supports your success rather than undermining it. The letter continued with specific warnings about manipulation tactics and advice for protecting myself from those who might view my inheritance as their opportunity rather than my right. She had anticipated exactly what would happen and provided a roadmap for my defense. By the end of the meeting, the family dynamic had shifted completely. Those who had dismissed me 48 hours earlier now expressed shame and anger about being deceived. They pledged their support for whatever action I decided to take against my mother. More importantly, they shared their own experiences of my mother's manipulation over the years. Stories emerged of divided loyalties, manufactured conflicts, and systematic campaigns to control family relationships and resources. The dinner party had been just the latest and most elaborate example of a long pattern of destructive behavior. The following week transformed from a period of isolation into an intensive campaign of relationship building and evidence gathering. The family members who had attended Sunday's Revelation meeting became the core of my support network, each contributing unique insights and resources to expose the full scope of my mother's manipulation. Cousin Sarah took charge of communications, creating a private group chat where family members could share their experiences and coordinate our response. The stories that emerged painted a disturbing picture of systematic manipulation spanning decades. Aunt Patricia revealed that my mother had been intercepting Christmas gifts intended for me since I was a teenager, returning them to senders with claims that I was going through a difficult phase and did not want contact with extended family. Graduation announcements, wedding invitations, and birthday cards had been systematically blocked, creating an artificial barrier between me and relatives who actually cared about my well-being. Uncle Robert, who worked in banking, offered to analyze the financial documentation my mother had forged. His expertise revealed sophisticated knowledge of document creation and financial systems that suggested this was not her first attempt at deception. These forgeries required insider knowledge of banking software and corporate email systems, he explained during a video call with our core group. This level of sophistication suggests either professional assistance or extensive experience with similar fraud. This observation led to our most significant discovery. Working with Mr. Bradley, we uncovered evidence that my mother had been systematically accessing my financial accounts for years, using identity theft techniques to monitor my income, spending, and savings patterns. She had used this information to time her manipulation campaigns and forge convincing documentation. The banking records revealed unauthorized access to my accounts dating back to my college years. Small discrepancies that I had attributed to fees or calculation errors were actually systematic theft designed to remain undetected. Over 6 years, she had stolen nearly $20,000, while simultaneously portraying me to family as financially irresponsible. Cousin David, who worked in corporate security, helped trace the digital footprints of the forged emails and documents. The metadata revealed that they had been created on my mother's computer over a period of several months, coinciding with my approaching 30th birthday and the inheritance transfer. She was planning this campaign for at least 6 months. David reported to our group. The sophistication and timing suggest she knew exactly when the inheritance would transfer and designed her strategy to isolate you from family support before that date. Our investigation expanded to include other potential victims within the family. We discovered that my mother had been systematically undermining relationships between various family members for years, always positioning herself as the source of information and the arbiter of family conflicts. She had told my cousins in California that the East Coast relatives looked down on them for their liberal politics. Meanwhile, she had told the East Coast family that the California cousins considered them backward and uneducated. Neither group had any awareness of these supposed conflicts until our investigation brought them together. The pattern was consistent across multiple relationships. Create division control, information flow, and position herself as the essential mediator. This strategy had prevented family members from developing independent relationships that might threaten her influence. As our alliance grew stronger, we began planning a comprehensive response that would expose her manipulation while protecting other potential victims. The group decided that simply confronting my mother privately would be insufficient given the scope and duration of her deception. We needed a public reckoning that would prevent future manipulation and provide accountability for years of damaged relationships. The upcoming family reunion scheduled for the following month provided the perfect opportunity for this confrontation. The reunion would bring together nearly 60 family members from across the country, including many who had been victims of my mother's manipulation without realizing it. We planned to use the gathering to present our evidence systematically and allow family members to share their own experiences of deception and divided loyalties. Preparation for the reunion required careful coordination and strategic planning. Each alliance member took responsibility for different aspects of the presentation. Sarah worked on creating a timeline of manipulation incidents spanning multiple decades. Patricia gathered testimonials from family members about intercepted communications and manufactured conflicts. Uncle Robert prepared financial evidence showing the theft and forgery patterns, while David compiled the digital forensics proving systematic fraud. Mr. Bradley agreed to attend the reunion to explain the legal implications and my grandmother's intentions regarding family unity and support. The most challenging aspect of our preparation was maintaining secrecy while building broader support. We needed to educate family members about the manipulation without alerting my mother to our investigation. This required careful communication and strategic revelation of information. We started by reaching out to family members who had been most obviously affected by manufactured conflicts. When we explained our findings to cousin Mark from Texas, who had been estranged from his siblings for 5 years over a supposed slight at a wedding, his reaction was explosive. "You mean she made up that entire story about them insulting my wife?" he demanded during a phone call. "I have been angry with my own brother for 5 years over something that never happened." Mark's reaction was typical of family members who discovered they had been manipulated into unnecessary conflicts. The revelation brought both relief and rage, along with determination to prevent future manipulation. As word spread carefully through our network, the alliance grew from 15 family members to over 30. Each new member brought additional evidence of manipulation and strengthened our case for comprehensive confrontation. The week before the reunion, we held a final planning meeting to coordinate our presentation and prepare for potential resistance. We anticipated that my mother would attempt to discredit our evidence or manipulate the situation to her advantage. She has been controlling family narratives for decades, Sarah reminded the group. She will not surrender that control without a fight. We need to be prepared for her to claim we are the ones creating division and conflict. Our strategy involved presenting evidence systematically, allowing family members to draw their own conclusions rather than demanding immediate acceptance of our narrative. We would start with the most recent and obvious manipulation, then work backward through years of documented deception. The goal was not just to expose my mother's behavior, but to heal the family relationships she had damaged over decades. This reunion would either restore family unity or reveal divisions too deep to repair. As the alliance prepared for confrontation, I found myself experiencing a complex mix of emotions. The support of these family members had restored my faith in blood relationships, but the anticipation of public conflict with my mother was emotionally exhausting. The woman who had raised me, who I had loved and trusted despite her critical nature, had revealed herself to be a calculating manipulator, willing to destroy family relationships for personal gain. Coming to terms with this reality while preparing for confrontation required both emotional strength and strategic thinking. The stage was set for a reunion that would determine the future of our entire extended family. The family reunion took place at a lake house in Michigan that had hosted our gatherings for over 20 years. The familiar setting should have brought comfort, but I felt the weight of impending confrontation as relatives arrived throughout Friday afternoon. Our alliance had grown to 37 family members, all prepared to support the systematic presentation of evidence against my mother's decades of manipulation. The first sign of trouble came when I noticed cousin Mark having an intense private conversation with my mother on the dock Saturday morning. Mark had been one of our strongest allies after discovering that his 5-year estrangement from his brother was based on lies she had fabricated. His anger had been righteous and genuine when we revealed the truth to him. Now, watching them through the kitchen window, I noticed his body language had changed completely. Where there had been determination and outrage, I saw uncertainty and what appeared to be guilt. My mother was using her hands expressively clearly, making emotional appeals that I could not hear but could easily interpret. Sarah noticed my concern and joined me at the window. "What do you think they are discussing?" she asked, though her tone suggested she shared my unease about this unexpected alliance. We decided to approach casually, pretending to prepare for the morning fishing expedition that traditionally opened reunion weekends. As we walked toward the dock, fragments of conversation became audible. "You have to understand, Mark Serafina has been struggling with some serious personal issues." My mother was saying, her voice carrying the perfect combination of maternal concern and confidential disclosure. The family has been trying to help her work through these problems, but she has become defensive and paranoid. Mark nodded thoughtfully, his earlier resolve clearly wavering under her emotional manipulation. "But the evidence she showed us seemed pretty convincing, Aunt Evelyn. Those forged documents and the financial theft? Oh, sweetheart, that breaks my heart." she responded, placing a gentle hand on his arm. She has been creating elaborate scenarios to justify her feelings of persecution. The documents she claims are forged are actually legitimate correspondence that she has altered to support her narrative. I have been working with her therapist to address these delusions, but the situation has become quite serious. The manipulation was masterful and terrifying to witness. In less than 15 minutes, she was systematically dismantling weeks of careful evidence gathering by reframing our investigation as symptoms of mental illness. Every piece of proof we had assembled was being repositioned as evidence of my psychological instability rather than her deception. I am only telling you this because you care about her, and I need family support to get her the help she needs, she continued. This reunion confrontation she has planned could be very damaging to her psychological state. We need to prevent it for her own well-being. Mark was completely convinced by the time Sarah and I reached them. His greeting was awkward and pitying, rather than supportive. The Alliance member who had been most vocal about seeking justice had become another tool in my mother's arsenal. The betrayal accelerated throughout the morning as Mark worked systematically through our supporter network. Using the private information he had gained through our planning meetings, he was able to approach each Alliance member with personalized arguments designed to undermine their confidence in our evidence. He told Uncle Robert that I had a history of financial paranoia stemming from college debt anxiety. He informed Aunt Patricia that I had been seeing a therapist for trust issues and persecution complexes. Each conversation was carefully crafted to transform support into concern about my mental health. The psychological warfare was sophisticated and effective. By Saturday afternoon, our solid alliance of 37 supporters had fractured into uncertainty and doubt. Family members who had been eager to confront my mother were now questioning whether intervention might be more appropriate than accusation. The breaking point came during the traditional Saturday evening campfire gathering. I had planned to present our evidence to the full family assembly, with each Alliance member contributing their piece of the larger story. Instead, I found myself facing an intervention disguised as family concern. Serafina, we need to talk about what has been happening over the past few weeks. My mother announced to the assembled family, her voice carrying perfect maternal authority mixed with worried love. Mark has helped me understand that you have been reaching out to family members with some very concerning stories and accusations. The circle of relatives, people who had been supportive just hours earlier, now looked at me with expressions ranging from pity to uncomfortable concern. The narrative had been completely flipped. Instead of being the victim exposing systematic manipulation, I had become the troubled family member requiring intervention. We all love you very much, sweetheart, but these elaborate theories about financial theft and document forgery are symptoms of a larger problem that needs professional attention. She continued her performance flawless in its combination of authority and compassion. Mark stepped forward with documents that he claimed supported their version of events. The papers appeared to be psychiatric evaluations and therapy session notes, detailing my supposed struggles with paranoid thinking and persecution complexes. The forgery was even more sophisticated than the financial documents, complete with letterhead from respected mental health facilities and detailed clinical observations. We have been trying to support you through this difficult period. Mark explained to the family, his voice carrying the weight of apparent medical authority. But the situation has escalated to the point where professional intervention is necessary. These accusations against your mother are clearly symptoms of underlying psychological distress. The medical documentation was convincing enough to sway family members who had been wavering. Even some of our core alliance members began questioning whether we had misinterpreted evidence and enabled a psychological crisis rather than uncovering legitimate fraud. The most devastating moment came when Sarah, who had been the cornerstone of our communication network, publicly stepped back from supporting my claims. "Serafina, I think we all just want what is best for you," she said carefully, her earlier passion for justice replaced by cautious concern. "Maybe we should focus on getting you connected with professional resources rather than pursuing these accusations that seem to be causing you so much distress." The isolation was complete and crushing. In less than 12 hours, I had gone from leading a strong alliance seeking justice to being the target of a family intervention based on fabricated mental health concerns. The evidence we had so carefully assembled was being dismissed as delusion, and the support system I had relied upon was actively working against me. My mother's final stroke of genius was positioning the intervention as loving family support rather than punishment or dismissal. Every person in that circle believed they were helping me by rejecting my claims and encouraging psychiatric treatment. The manipulation was so complete that they genuinely felt compassionate while participating in my psychological destruction. As the evening progressed, family members took turns sharing their concerns about my behavior and encouraging me to accept help. Each comment was delivered with love and worry, making resistance appear ungrateful and further evidence of mental instability. "We have arranged for you to speak with a counselor tomorrow," my mother announced as the intervention concluded. "Dr. Martinez specializes in family conflict and paranoid thinking patterns. She is very experienced in helping people work through these types of elaborate delusion systems." The counselor was undoubtedly another part of my mother's elaborate deception, probably prepared to reinforce the narrative of mental illness while discrediting any evidence I might present. The psychological trap was complete with every avenue of escape designed to further prove the diagnosis. I agreed to the counseling session not because I believed their narrative, but because I needed time to regroup and develop a new strategy. The alliance I had built so carefully was not just gone, but actively working against me. Any attempt to fight back would be interpreted as further evidence of psychological instability. That night alone in my childhood bedroom at the lake house, I faced the devastating reality of complete betrayal. The family members I had trusted with evidence and strategy had been turned into weapons against me. Mark's defection had provided my mother with insider knowledge that allowed her to stay ahead of every move we had planned. The isolation felt absolute. Even worse than the original discovery of manipulation was this systematic destruction of hope and support. My mother had not just stolen money and forged documents. She had weaponized my own efforts at justice against me, transforming allies into agents of my destruction. Sunday morning brought unexpected salvation in the form of Mr. Bradley's unannounced arrival at the lake house. He had driven 3 hours from his office after receiving concerning reports about my supposed mental health crisis and the family's plan to pursue psychiatric intervention. "I apologize for the intrusion," he announced to the family assembled for breakfast. "But I have some urgent legal matters to discuss with Serafina, and I understand there have been some concerning developments regarding her competency to handle her inheritance." My mother's face went pale as she processed this unexpected variable in her carefully orchestrated narrative. The presence of my grandmother's attorney, armed with legal authority and independent verification of facts, threatened to unravel the psychological manipulation she had constructed around my supposed mental illness. "Mr. Bradley, we appreciate your concern, but this is a family matter." my mother responded, attempting to maintain control of the situation. Serafina is dealing with some personal issues that require professional attention, not legal intervention. Mr. Bradley's response was swift and devastating. Mrs. Henderson, I am afraid this situation requires both legal and professional attention, though perhaps not in the manner you have suggested. I have some documentation that may clarify certain misconceptions about Serafina's mental state and the validity of her recent claims. He had brought with him a briefcase containing not just my grandmother's original estate documents, but also comprehensive evidence that he had been gathering independently over the past week. As an experienced attorney, he had recognized the signs of potential elder abuse and financial manipulation when I first contacted him about the intercepted inheritance communications. I took the liberty of conducting an independent investigation after our initial consultation, he explained to the assembled family. The patterns Serafina described were consistent with financial elder abuse cases I have handled previously. I wanted to verify her claims before proceeding with any legal action. The evidence he presented was irrefutable and professionally documented. Bank records obtained through legal channels showed systematic, unauthorized access to my accounts over a 6-year period. Digital forensics conducted by certified experts proved that the forged documents had been created on computers registered to my mother. Most damaging to her psychological manipulation narrative, Mr. Bradley had obtained independent psychiatric evaluation of the supposed medical records that Mark had presented the previous evening. A licensed psychiatrist had reviewed the documents and identified them as obvious forgeries with clinical language that no legitimate mental health professional would use. These purported psychiatric evaluations contain numerous red flags that indicate fabrication. Dr. Patricia Reynolds explained via speakerphone to the stunned family gathering. The clinical terminology is incorrect. The evaluation format does not match standard procedures, and several medications mentioned are not appropriate for the supposed diagnoses. Dr. Reynolds had agreed to participate in the call after reviewing both the forged documents and the legitimate evidence of financial manipulation. Her professional opinion was that the psychological manipulation tactics being employed against me were themselves evidence of systematic abuse rather than family concern. What we are seeing here is a textbook example of gaslighting and psychological manipulation designed to discredit a victim of financial abuse. She continued. The sophistication of this campaign suggests long-term planning and familiarity with manipulation techniques. The revelation transformed the family dynamic instantly. Mark, who had been so confident in his betrayal the previous evening, now appeared devastated as he realized he had been used as a tool in my mother's deception. The medical evidence he had presented with such authority was exposed as another layer of elaborate fraud. I am so sorry, Serafina, he said, his voice breaking with genuine remorse. She convinced me that we were helping you, that the evidence you had shown us was part of a psychological crisis. I never imagined that someone would forge medical records to manipulate family members. Mr. Bradley's investigation had uncovered additional victims within the family that we had not identified during our original alliance building. 3 other relatives had been systematically excluded from inheritance information and family financial decisions through similar manipulation campaigns over the past decade. Cousin Jennifer from Arizona had been told that she was financially irresponsible and excluded from knowledge about a trust fund established by her grandfather. Uncle Thomas had been convinced that his siblings considered him a failure, preventing him from learning about family business opportunities that could have benefited his struggling farm. Each case followed the same pattern: isolation through manufactured conflicts, character assassination through forged or manipulated evidence, and systematic exclusion from family resources and support systems. My mother had been operating what amounted to a long-term financial manipulation scheme that affected multiple family members across several generations. The most shocking revelation came when Mr. Bradley presented evidence that my mother had been intercepting and redirecting inheritance distributions intended for other family members over a 15-year period. The lake house where we were gathered, which everyone believed she had purchased through careful saving, had actually been bought with money stolen from family inheritance funds. Your grandmother's estate was just the latest target in a pattern of financial manipulation that has been ongoing for over a decade, Mr. Bradley explained. Mrs. Henderson has been systematically accessing family financial information and redirecting assets that were intended for other beneficiaries. The evidence included forged death certificates, altered will documents, and elaborate schemes to convince family members that inheritances had been smaller than actually distributed or had been lost due to legal complications. In reality, she had been intercepting and pocketing funds while maintaining her image as a helpful family member, managing difficult financial situations. Dr. Reynolds provided additional insight into the psychological methods being employed. This type of systematic manipulation requires significant planning and emotional detachment, she explained. The perpetrator must be able to maintain caring relationships with victims while simultaneously undermining their well-being for personal gain. The combination of legal evidence and professional psychological analysis was overwhelming and undeniable. Family members who had been manipulated into opposing me 12 hours earlier now expressed outrage and determination to seek justice for all victims of my mother's decades-long deception. The alliance that had been destroyed by Mark's betrayal was reborn stronger and more determined than before. The addition of Mr. Bradley's legal expertise and Dr. Reynolds' psychological insights provided professional credibility that made future manipulation impossible. We need to pursue both civil and criminal charges. Uncle Robert declared his banking expertise, allowing him to understand the full scope of the financial fraud. This level of systematic theft and manipulation constitutes multiple felonies across several jurisdictions. Sarah, who had been devastated by her role in the previous evening's intervention, became our most passionate advocate for comprehensive legal action. "We cannot let this continue," she said with determination that exceeded even her original support. How many other family members have been victimized by manipulation we have not discovered yet? As Sunday afternoon progressed, our group expanded to include nearly every adult family member at the reunion. The evidence was so comprehensive and the patterns so clear that denial became impossible, even for those most resistant to believing such elaborate deception within their own family. My mother's isolation was now complete, but unlike the psychological manipulation she had employed against me, this exclusion was based on documented evidence and professional verification. She had no allies left and no credible defense against the mounting evidence of systematic fraud and manipulation. The reunion that was supposed to be my destruction had become her exposure and downfall. The confrontation with my mother took place Sunday evening as the family prepared to leave the lake house. Mr. Bradley had spent the afternoon coordinating with law enforcement and financial institutions to freeze accounts and preserve evidence for criminal prosecution. The reunion that began as a family celebration would end with arrests and a complete restructuring of family relationships. My mother's final attempt at manipulation came when she realized her situation was hopeless. Faced with overwhelming evidence and universal family condemnation, She tried one last desperate strategy, claiming to be a victim of mental illness herself, suggesting that years of stress from managing family finances had caused her to make decisions she could not fully remember or control. "I think I may have been experiencing early dementia," she announced to the family, gathering her voice, carrying carefully practiced confusion and vulnerability. "These financial discrepancies you are describing do not match my memory of events. I may need medical evaluation to understand what has been happening." Dr. Reynolds, still participating by phone, immediately identified this as another manipulation tactic. Sudden claims of memory loss or mental illness when confronted with evidence of systematic fraud are common deflection strategies, she explained to the family. The sophistication and long-term planning evident in this case are inconsistent with cognitive impairment or mental illness. The medical records that Mr. Bradley had subpoenaed showed regular health checkups with no indication of cognitive decline or psychological disorders. Her attempts to claim mental illness as a defense only provided additional evidence of her willingness to fabricate any narrative that served her purposes. When local law enforcement arrived to execute the warrants that Mr. Bradley had expedited through the court system, my mother's final facade crumbled completely. The woman who had maintained perfect composure while manipulating family members for decades broke down in tears of rage rather than remorse. "You have all been turned against me by an ungrateful daughter who cannot accept that she was never meant to inherit anything," she screamed as officers placed her in handcuffs. "I built this family's wealth and security while she contributed nothing. That inheritance should support people who actually deserve it." Her final words revealed the core motivation behind decades of manipulation, a fundamental belief that she had the right to control family resources and relationships according to her own judgment of worthiness. The mask of maternal concern was completely gone, replaced by naked entitlement and contempt for anyone who challenged her authority. The immediate legal consequences were swift and comprehensive. Criminal charges included identity theft, financial fraud, mail fraud, and elder abuse, spanning multiple jurisdictions. Civil suits initiated by family members would recover stolen assets and provide restitution for damages caused by years of manipulation. More importantly, the family began the process of healing relationships that had been damaged by manufactured conflicts and deliberate isolation. Mark worked to reconcile with siblings he had been estranged from for years. Cousin Jennifer learned about the inheritance she had been denied and began rebuilding financial security for her family. Uncle Thomas discovered family business opportunities that could save his struggling farm, while other relatives connected for the first time in decades after learning their mutual resentment had been based on lies. The manipulation that was designed to divide the family ultimately brought everyone closer together through shared recognition of betrayal and mutual support for healing. My relationship with these family members deepened beyond traditional blood loyalty into chosen family bonds based on genuine care and proven support. The alliance that formed to seek justice evolved into ongoing relationships that provided emotional security and practical assistance. Sarah and I developed a friendship that extended far beyond our family connection. Her guilt about temporarily abandoning me during the intervention motivated her to become one of my strongest advocates and most trusted friends. Mark's remorse led to a protective older brother relationship that I had never experienced with my actual sibling. Mr. Bradley became more than just an attorney handling my inheritance. His genuine concern for my well-being and professional dedication to preventing elder abuse created a mentor relationship that provided guidance for navigating both legal and personal challenges. Dr. Reynolds continued working with me to understand the psychological impact of long-term manipulation and develop strategies for maintaining healthy relationships. Her insights helped me recognize manipulation tactics and build confidence in trusting my own perceptions and judgments. The inheritance that my grandmother left me became a tool for supporting family members who had been victimized by manipulation rather than a source of individual wealth. Establishing a family assistance fund allowed us to help relatives recover from financial damages while creating ongoing security for future generations. The lake house, which was recovered through civil litigation, became a gathering place for genuine family connection rather than staged manipulation events. Annual reunions now celebrate authentic relationships and provide opportunities for relatives to maintain connections without fear of hidden agendas or manufactured conflicts. Most significantly, I learned that family loyalty must be earned through consistent care and support rather than demanded based on blood relationships. The relatives who stood by me during the darkest moments of betrayal became my true family, while the woman who gave birth to me revealed herself to be an adversary disguised as a protector. The experience taught me that justice sometimes requires patience and strategic thinking, but truth ultimately prevails when supported by evidence and genuine alliances. The family members who initially believed my mother's manipulation were not weak or gullible. They were caring people who wanted to believe the best about someone they trusted. The most powerful lesson came from understanding that healing from betrayal requires both accountability for wrongdoing and forgiveness for those who were manipulated into participating in harm. The distinction between perpetrators and victims was crucial for rebuilding family relationships and preventing future manipulation. 6 months after the reunion, my mother was sentenced to 5 years in prison for financial fraud and identity theft. The criminal trial provided additional closure and validation for all family members who had been victimized by her manipulation. Justice was not just about punishment, but about official recognition of the harm caused and prevention of future abuse. As I reflect on this journey from exclusion to empowerment, I want to ask you something important. Have you ever experienced family manipulation or betrayal that made you question your own perceptions? How did you find the strength to seek truth and justice when the people closest to you became your opponents? Share your experiences in the comments below because your stories matter and might help someone else recognize their own situation. If this story resonated with you or helped you understand family dynamics in your own life, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real stories about overcoming family betrayal and finding your chosen family. Share this video with anyone who might need to hear that they are not alone in dealing with family manipulation. Thank you for joining me on this difficult but ultimately empowering journey. Remember that true family supports your success and stands by you during challenges, while those who manipulate and betray you reveal their character through their actions. Trust your instincts, seek evidence when something feels wrong, and never be afraid to choose authentic relationships over toxic blood connections. You deserve family who celebrates your achievements and protects your well-being rather than undermining it for their own gain.